The month of April brings with it college football across the country, and it's no different here at the University of Oregon as Chip Kelly and his Ducks open up the 2012 season. Hi everyone, I'm Warren Williamson along with Nick Smith, contributor to Oregon Duck Football News, and this is our very first edition of Press Pass, our weekly podcast where we talk Oregon football. Well, this week ended the first week of spring drills for the Ducks. Today is Saturday. The Ducks had 4 practices this week. So before we talk about the offense, that's what everyone wants to talk about, let's talk about the defense. The Ducks lose some key players on defense, especially at linebacker position. DeWitt Stuckey, Josh Cadu is gone. So there are some spaces there where the Ducks need to fill in.
Absolutely. But there's players like Kiko Alonso and Michael Clay that step right into those roles. Brian Jackson steps into Rover. Right now, I think is where we're going to see who we're going to see at Rover replacing Eddie Pleasant. So we're not going to see a lot of attrition there. Key players being replaced by very capable players as well.
Earlier this week, I talked to Boseko Lukumbo, who saw a lot of playing time this last season. He's a very athletic guy. One of the key things that he said to me, Nick, was that he wanted to step up this year and become more of a leader. And I think that's really important with Chip Kelly and Nick Aliotta to see those guys step up and take on that role.
Warren, that's what linebackers do. Linebackers are leaders. They love to step in the middle of that defensive huddle and get guys fired up and get them going. With Oregon not huddling, I don't know how that works out, but I wouldn't be surprised to see Boseko Lukumbo step into a bigger leadership role, be a little more vocal. He was a leader by example last year, and I expect to see a lot more of that this year.
One of the key leaders, of course, is free safety John Boyette. Boyette, a senior now, he comes back for his senior season, and he, again, is also one of those players who told me earlier this week that's one of the things that he would like to do is play more of a leadership role. And the question about John is that will he move to the Rover position away from that free safety position? But the thought process is there. Does he have the cover skills and the speed to do that?
Yeah, I don't quite think so. And I think that's why Brian Jackson will fit in very well at Rover instead of John Boyette.
And Eric Dargan as well.
Eric Dargan as well. John Boyette is a really smash mouth, going to step up and plug the hole as we saw during the Rose Bowl against Monty Ball. John Boyette is a capable tackler, a willing tackler, and really likes to get his nose dirty. So I'll expect him to stay at that free safety role and become more of a leader because he's going to be comfortable. You move a guy around, change positions on him, he's not necessarily as comfortable, not going to be as big of a leader. John Boyette now is coming into his 3rd year of being a major contributor on the defense. I expect him to be a big-time leader this year.
Most people thought the cornerback position last year was the Ducks' weakest spot because by attrition, they had to fill in those spaces on the field with true freshmen. This year, those 3 freshmen are back with a lot more experience, more size, and they know the defensive schemes a lot more. So I think the Ducks are better at cornerback this year.
I think the Ducks were better at cornerback last year than what people gave them credit for. Terrence Mitchell is a phenomenal athlete. He will be a staple on the edges there. Dior Mathis is a guy I expect to see a lot of playing time. Troy Hill right there with him. Those guys are all very, very capable. I'd also like to see a little bit of Avery Patterson out there. Made a couple mistakes in the Rose Bowl, but those guys were young last year, and I expect them to keep making contributions this coming season.
And when you go up against teams like USC, who has big receivers who torched the Ducks last year, even though the Ducks were in that game, they've got to play better against those bigger receivers.
Absolutely. They have to play more physical against those receivers. Terrence Mitchell stays roughly about the same. I think he lost a few pounds. Avery Patterson's up a little bit. Dior Mathis is up a little bit. He put on a little weight. Dior Mathis has also gained some significant speed with the training with the indoor men's track team here at U of O. And, Troy Hill, I haven't seen a lot of Troy yet. I haven't talked to Troy yet. So I don't know how he's feeling physique-wise, but I'd imagine that was a big role in their off-season production.
And let's not forget, the Pac-12 is now a pass-happy conference. You've got Rich Rodriguez at Arizona. You've got the coach up at Washington State.
Mike Leach
is up there. You've got Jim Mora at UCLA, and I think Sarkisian up at Washington. So I think there's going to be more. You'll see more footballs through the air this year.
I think so too, and I think that's going to help Oregon a little bit, regardless of what quarterback steps in and starts to play quarterback or is the starting quarterback on September 1st. Both are capable passers. Both have reportedly stronger arms than Darren Thomas. I think we saw a little bit last year in Brian Bennett that he has the very capable arm of hitting the receivers downfield. So it'll be interesting to see how this works out for Oregon.
Before we talk about the quarterbacks, let's go back to the defensive line. Of course, the Ducks bring in their huge defensive lineman, 5-star recruit Eric Armstead, 6'8", about 287 pounds. We've seen him at practice this week, although we're not allowed to speak to him because he's a freshman. But this guy is ripped. He's cut, and he's actually one of those guys who could easily come in and see some good playing time on the D-line this year.
I expect him to come in and see some playing time right away. I mean, folks, you don't understand. This kid, I'm a big guy, and he is bigger outside of pads than I would be in pads, and he's massive. He towers over me by about a foot, and I'm not a short person. So it'll be very, very interesting to see what kind of contributions he plays right away.
Of course, coming back, the big end is Deion Jordan. He comes back again. Of course, Taylor Hart has stepped up, and we've heard good things about Taylor Hart this week from Coach Kelly and from Coach Aliotti. So I think the Ducks has set themselves up good on the defensive line.
Yeah, I think the offensive and defensive line, not to get off subject, but both those lineman groups are kind of staples right now for this Oregon squad.
Let's move to the quarterback position. This is something that all of us reporters were clamoring about this week. We wanted to find out who was doing the best inside of the Mo between 6'3" Brian Bennett, who's a sophomore, and of course 6'4" Marcus Mariota, who's a redshirt freshman. The difference between the two, not much, very similar type athletes. Mariota is a bit bigger. Some say he's got a stronger arm. The biggest thing for Bennett, obviously, is his playing time and his experience that he saw last year.
Yeah, if you were to pick a front runner, Brian Bennett would be it. Regardless of reports coming out of practice or who talked to who or who talked to whose mom or uncle, like, if you're going to go strictly off of performance-based, Brian Bennett is your front runner as of right now.
I think Bennett has shown great presence in the pocket. He ran well last year. He started at Colorado, of course, in Boulder. Has thrown no interceptions, and he's got a good head on his shoulder. And we asked him on Saturday today if he had a good grip of the offense, and coming back this year, he said he's got a better grip of the offense, so that bodes well.
When you look back to last year, at this time last year, it was Brian Bennett, Darren Thomas, Marcus Mariota. They decided to redshirt Mariota, so he saw a drop-off in the number of reps he was getting. Brian Bennett was taking reps all last year, and if you don't know this, Chip Kelly likes to split the reps pretty evenly between his starting quarterback and backup quarterback, probably about 60-40, maybe 70-30, but it's pretty close. So Brian Bennett got some significant reps last year, knows the offense, and has a firm grasp of what this team needs to win.
Let's quickly move into the running back position. Of course, LaMichael James is off to the NFL. He was a junior. He chose to move on. He's done everything that this university has asked him to do. So who steps in? Kenyon Barner, the senior. Barner is almost identical to LaMichael James in stature, about the same speed. But Barner looks a bit bigger, and he certainly has the skills and the speed to play well this year.
I think there's things that separate Kenyon Barner and LaMichael James, and I think that upper body size and the physicality between the tackles is something that separates them. LaMichael James is very physical between the tackles, but Kenyon Barner, rather than sidestep and go around a guy, would rather go through him. LaMichael is one of those guys, hey, I've gotten 5 yards, I'll try to go around this guy. Kenyon will go through that guy. And so it'll be interesting to see how that plays out, but he can't do it by himself at running back. There's too many reps. So it'll be interesting to see how they work DeAnthony Thomas in there, who we've heard from Coach Campbell this week is taking quite a bit of reps at the running back position. And That's it right now as far as running backs that know the offense.
We were able to speak with D'Anthony this week, and he said he put on a few pounds, not a lot. He doesn't want to lose his speed, so he doesn't want to pack on too much weight. But he did say he's taken a lot more reps in spring ball, which is good. And I think the reason for that is Gary Campbell is concerned and has told us he's concerned about the depth at the running back position. Of course, 5-star recruit Byron Marshall comes in this spring. He's not here in spring drills. He didn't enroll early, so he's going to be behind the 8 ball come this summer. So it really is D'Anthony Thomas and Kenyon Barner.
Yeah, and it's amazing that we've come to that in college football. That if you don't graduate high school early and come to spring football, you're behind. It didn't always used to be that way. But regardless, he will come back. He will be here. They'll take advantage of the time they have with him this summer and leading into fall camp and see if he's ready and if he can grasp the offense. I'm sure he has a playbook at home that he's learning right now. So if he can get in there and really start to learn that running back position, I could see him playing a pretty good role.
He certainly has the skills to be able to play.
Absolutely.
It's how quickly he can pick up the
Yes,
offense.
there's so much that goes into this offense. It's so intricate. Chip likes to tell us all the time that it's very, very simple, but it's not. The coverage schemes and who you're blocking and when to slip out of the backfield and go out to get a pass off of pass protection. Those are things that Michael James and Darren Thomas had worked out between each other. There was that familiarity there, and that's just not going to be there with anybody this year. Brian Bennett and Kenyon Barner included.
And lastly, you had mentioned about both lines on offense and defense being stacked. The offensive line for Oregon, they've really set themselves up well. They've recruited well. The biggest question is Carson York, the senior. He's the true veteran who comes back. As everyone knows, he tore his patellar tendon in the Rose Bowl against Wisconsin, completely severed it, had to have it sewn back up. But here he is. We spoke to him this week, and he's already in drills and has the ability to participate in the drills that he chooses. So will he be in the starting lineup? He thinks he will in September.
I don't see any scenario where Carson York, other than Carson York getting hurt again or re-injuring that knee, I don't see any scenario with him not in the starting lineup come September 1st.
Veronis Grassu comes back at center. That's a very key position to bring him back.
Yes.
Of course, Nick Cody on the left side will actually fill in well. So the Ducks have really, again, set themselves up on the offensive line. And let's not forget, one of the Long brothers, Kyle Long. Kyle Long comes in from the JC ranks, and he's going to step right in as well. He gets 1 year.
Yeah, he gets 1 year to prove himself and try to make himself a draft pick or a camp invitee, because he probably won't be drafted. And there's another person that we forgot to mention as we're talking. He just walks out of the CAD Center, and that's Ryan Clanton, who played a major role stepping in as Carson York got hurt in the Rose Bowl. He steps in and finishes off the game, and plays very well. He's going to be another guy in there that's going to be in that mix. Oregon rotates 10 on the offensive line, and they're going to have those 10 deep. If they don't, those guys are going to be gassed.
Carson York said yesterday that he would like to see the Ducks offense like hockey, where they run in lines. He'd like to see 2 lines of 5, 10 players that you just talked about. We'll see if that happens. So that wraps up our very first week of Press Pass. Our podcast here on Oregon Duck Football News wraps up the very first week of spring drills for the Duck. Of course, they have 4 practices next week. Make sure you come back for podcast number 2. And remember to follow us on Twitter at DuckFBNews. I'm Warren Williamson. This is Nick Smith. Remember to come back next week on Oregon Duck Football News.